Hey, Caleb here, the founder of Patriot Training Center, and today I got another tip on how to stop shooting low and left. One of the most popular videos that we have on this channel is one that we put together about how to stop shooting low and left. And in that video, I was describing how on the range, you can pay attention to the tension in your firing hand when you're shooting, because a lot of times this is what happens when we shoot low and left. It's actually, people talk about trigger jerk, but a lot of times when we're trying to speed up, and we're trying to shoot fast, and we're trying to shoot aggressively, it's actually the tension in your firing hand. I explained kind of the solution to that on the range, but now I'm going to talk about a drill that you can do in dry fire that will help almost completely eliminate this problem, or at least get you on the road to it. So why is it that really, really good shooters can shoot targets really far away, faster than you can, and they can still hit the target? This is how they're doing it. This is basically what they can do. So I first heard about this drill from Ben Stager. It's in his Dry Fire Reloaded book and a bunch of other books, and I think they do it in their classes now. But basically this is called trigger control at speed, and it's been really helpful for me. So you think about when you're learning the basics, you need to learn how to press the trigger without disturbing the sights. So normally the way that we do that is we'll focus on a nice controlled trigger press, right? So we'll put the sights on target, and a lot of times we can use a blank wall, which is a great way to learn trigger control. And you'll prep the trigger, so you're taking the slack out of the trigger. And then a lot of people even describe it, you probably heard this, as like a surprise break. And you just press, 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 and the gun should surprise you, right, when it goes off. And you take all the time in the world, and you press the trigger as slow as you need to keep the sights from being disturbed. Okay, so that's a great way to learn how to fire your trigger without disturbing the sights. Now, wherever we put the sights, right, as long as we press the trigger with those sights on target and we don't induce any movement to the gun that moves the sight picture, that bullet will go exactly where we want it to go. So the problem is, right, when you try to shoot fast and aggressive, because if we're training for like a self-defense scenario, right, these things happen fast. Someone is trying to kill you. The only reason why you use a gun is for immediate defense of life. That gun is going to get out, and you're going to press the trigger fast, right? You see this all the time in officer-involved shootings, police work. They're just banging on the trigger, and they dump a whole bunch of rounds down range, and that's one of the reasons why in police shootings, you know, the hit rate is something like 20%. Okay, so this is a disconnect between the way that we traditionally train trigger control, right, and the way that we actually shoot a gun when we're trying to shoot fast and accurate, right? So for self-defensive situations, a lot of times, typically these things happen at 3 to 5 yards. That's like, you know, very close, okay? So you don't have a lot of time to prep the trigger, press it gently, right? You're gonna put your sights on target, and you're gonna pull the trigger as fast as you can, whether you really want to or not. So you better practice how to do that. So how do we practice that? That's trigger control at speed. And basically, it's just like it sounds. So we're practicing trigger control, but as fast as we can press the trigger. So we would do the same thing, and you would start in with a target and be close to the target, the same way that you would do a slow controlled trigger press. And you put your finger on the trigger, but you're not going to take out the slack. See, most of the time when we learn trigger control, you take out the slack, and then you gently press, right? And then that's the way that you control the trigger. Okay, let me show you from a different angle here. So you take out the slack, right? And I'm right there at the wall, and then you slowly press the trigger, right? So that's the way we normally do it. But for trigger control at speed, you're going to start with your finger just barely touching the trigger, and then you're going to plow through it as fast as possible, right? The way you do this is the exact same way. You would focus on your sights, and then you put your finger on the trigger, don't take out any slack, and then press through. Oh, and that one moves on me. So the same way, put your finger on the trigger, and then boom, press through. Now, the way that you should really be doing this, you can try it a few times just like that, but you need a shot timer, and then you're going to put yourself on the shot timer. So I have a shot timer here. And this one is an ALG Labs one, and it actually picks up the sound of the dry fire. But any shot timer can work, because shot timers, when you hear the beep, you're going to set it on a random beep. And shot timers are normally around 0.30 seconds is the amount of time that beep noise goes. And you basically want that trigger press to be over and under that 0.3 seconds, right? That means that you're pressing the trigger fast enough, and you're not cheating the drill by trying to press it slowly so that you don't disturb your sights. So with this one, it actually picks up dry fire noises most of the time. So I'm going to set it on random delay, and when it beeps, I'm going to press the trigger as fast as I can without moving the sights, okay? So let me put this here. Okay, so that time, you can see the shot timer there, it says 0.23, so that's what you want. What you're wanting is 0.25 or less, okay? Because that's about, that lets you know that you're acting as fast and as aggressively. As soon as you hear that shot timer go off, you're pressing the trigger, okay? So I'll show you again. Okay, that was 0.32. So a little slow there, and I had a little bit movement in the sights. I got distracted, okay? So that's what's gonna happen and you're gonna have to work through this, right? And then what you're gonna do is you're gonna pay attention to the tension in your firing grip hand. And that's what happened that one. I was thinking about it, but then I put too much pressure into my firing hand when I pulled the trigger. So what you're gonna find is that you're gonna squeeze a lot with your support hand, and you're gonna try to keep your firing hand relaxed, but still move your trigger finger as fast as possible, okay? And that's what's gonna get you good results. You're gonna start that way with your fingers like touching the trigger, and then when you get good at that, if you do this like, 50, 100 reps all at one time, it doesn't take that long, right? You're just racking it and doing a trigger press. Okay, you're gonna start to figure out how to do it and pay attention to the tension in your hand. And then eventually that's gonna get easy with your finger on the trigger. So then you can start with your finger off the trigger pretty far out, like touching the trigger guard here. And then that would be the next level of the drill. And then another thing that I like to do is just one hand only, and that's gonna be really challenging. And then super challenging is gonna be your support hand here. But basically all the time you're trying to be aggressive and you're trying to get that shot off at 0.25 or less, or before the end of that beep if your timer doesn't pick up dry fire shots, because that beep is 0.30. And that's basically what you're gonna do. And what you're gonna find is this will translate really well when you go to live fire and you're at those closer distances. And the better you get at this, the less your sights move. The less your sights move, the more accurate those shots are gonna be, even when you're shooting aggressively. So that is the trigger control at speed drill. I highly recommend it. I think it's one of the best drills that I've learned for learning how to run the gun fast, but also still getting hits, okay? Because we don't want to slow down and get our hits, because in real life, we're not gonna slow down to get our hits. We need to learn how to be accurate, but also fast, okay? So check that out and let me know how it goes for you.